starts. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on protecting your practice liability insurance essentials for dietitians. I'm Vicki Constantino, Director of Member Experience here at Dietitians of Canada, and I'll be your host for this session. We are thrilled to have you all here today to discuss such an important topic for our members and for all dietitians. Before we begin, I have a few housekeeping items to go over. First, please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be available for viewing after the session. Second, if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the Q&A box, and our presenters will address as many of them as possible during the Q&A period at the end of the webinar. If there are a lot of questions to get through, our presenters have offered to stay a little bit longer to respond to as many questions as their time allows. So now it's my pleasure to introduce our speakers. We have with us today Tara Scullion and Sarah McKinnon from BMS Canada Risk Services Limited. Tara is a director at BMS Canada, and Sarah is a broker and the DC program lead. Both are registered insurance brokers at BMS Canada, which is a specialist broker providing insurance coverage and risk management services to over 500,000 health and regulated professionals across Canada, including thousands of dietitians through the Dietitians of Canada insurance program. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Tara Scullion and Sarah McKinnon. Over to you, ladies.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Vicki, for the lovely introduction. And thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules. I know it's lunch hour, so we'll try to kind of go through the information quickly, but also kind of thoroughly. Like Vicki mentioned, my name is Tara Scullion, and I am joined by my colleague, Sarah McKinnon, and we are both registered insurance brokers with BMS. So BMS is the program partner. We've been the program partner with Dietitians of Canada for, I think we're going on the third year, which is incredible. And so we provide your member liability insurance program, which we're going to chat through in greater detail today, and how the program is designed to protect your practice as a dietitian. So I know Vicki gave a bit of an overview on BMS, but wanted to just spend not very long at all, but just a few minutes to provide you with a bit more information on us, just in case we haven't had the pleasure of connecting with you directly. So like Vicki mentioned, we're a bit of a specialty brokerage in that we work primarily with associations to deliver specialist coverage and risk management resources to over 500,000 professionals across Canada. And that's done through about 70 different national and provincial associations, just like Dietitians of Canada. So we have a team of brokers. We're located in Ottawa, Ontario, actually, just at Lansdowne. And we have a dedicated phone line and an email address, which you can reach us at any point. So I know we're going to try to get through as many questions today, but if we aren't able to get to your question, or if you think of something after the fact, please do not hesitate to give our team a call, and we would be more than happy to help. Perfect. So today we are going to provide a bit of an overview on the insurance that you have access to through your membership with Dietitians of Canada, and why, as a dietitian, you would need this type of insurance while providing your services. We'll take a look specifically at the insurance offered through the Dietitians of Canada program, and some kind of coverage highlights and high-level details of what's included within that policy. If you're already a policyholder with us, just good things to be aware of, or if perhaps you are thinking of purchasing coverage for the first time. We'll also go through a number of different kind of claims examples with you today so that you can relate the kind of policy to these different types of claims. Perfect. So the Dietitians of Canada member program now protects over 2,500 members, which is amazing. There's many benefits of being part of a group program like this through your association. such as access to kind of specialized support for both claims handling and legal assistance. So, as a member participating in the insurance program, you have access to a pro bono legal helpline. That's through the law firm Gowlings. So Gowlings has offices across Canada, actually, and they're really specialized in what they do. They work with thousands of professionals and deal with malpractice claims. So as a member participating in the program, you would have access to their pro bono legal hotline. And Sarah will go through kind of what that is and provide you a bit more details later on in the presentation. Perfect. So through your membership with Dietitians of Canada, you have the option to purchase a core insurance product, which you can see on your slide there. So essentially what that is it's a combined both professional liability insurance and commercial general liability insurance. And so these kind of two policies, they're sold as one combined policy, and they're designed to kind of meet the needs of dietitians. And that's specifically what we're going to look at today, that combined liability insurance product. We do offer several other insurance products and services, and we've just briefly highlighted them on the slide for you there. We're not going to spend any time on them today, but just wanted to make sure you were aware of those products that you have access to, particularly if you're working in private practice, maybe as an independent contractor, or maybe you own your own business. There are other products that you would have access to and may be recommended based off of your unique practice circumstance. So again, we'll make sure to share our contact details. So if you ever wanted to speak with a broker to understand kind of what your risk exposure is, if you are a business owner and to go through your insurance portfolio, we're more than happy to do that with you. And we'll make sure again to share our contact details. So first, we're going to look at professional liability insurance. So again, that's that first element of coverage that is included under that combined policy you can purchase through your Dietitians of Canada membership. So what exactly is professional liability, and why is it so important? The reason why coverage is so important is because you could be found legally responsible for kind of errors, omissions, and negligent acts associated with the services that you deliver as a dietitian. So if your advice causes or is even alleged to cause a client to sustain an injury, you could be found liable for that and perhaps be required by law to provide some sort of financial compensation to the injured party. And what a professional liability policy is designed to cover essentially is your legal defense costs. So for you to be able to hire a lawyer and defend yourself against the allegations that have been made against you. It's also designed to cover kind of any financial compensation you could be required by the courts to pay to that injured individual. Like I mentioned, we'll go through some examples with you today, just so that you can relate kind of the coverage available to you to those circumstances. And for the purpose of today's session, we'll break down the types of claims into 3 different categories. So the first category that we'll look at are what we would call malpractice claims. And this is probably the claim that comes to mind most often when you think of professional liability insurance. So this would be if a client were to actually hire their own lawyer to allege that there's been some sort of professional negligence. So they may be unhappy with a service that you delivered, or maybe a service that you didn't deliver. So they serve you with a statement of claim and sue you, stating that the services you provided have caused them some sort of injury that they are now kind of seeking damages for. And so what the Dietitians of Canada professional liability policy would provide coverage for is your legal defense costs. So for should you need to hire an attorney, it would cover your legal fees throughout the lifetime of that claim, as well as pay for any compensation that could potentially be awarded. So the limits of your policy, you'll see on the slide there on kind of the bottom left-hand corner, are 5 million per claim, 5 million per year, should you have kind of multiple claims throughout the policy term. And the policy is designed to cover your full scope of practice as a dietitian. So as long as the services that you are delivering fall within your scope of practice as defined by your provincial regulatory body, that policy would kind of follow you where you are delivering your services. It also extends to cover you for services delivered worldwide, and would respond to claims that are brought forward and defended kind of in Canada. It's important to note that if you are delivering services worldwide, you would want to make sure that you're abiding by your scope of practice, both where you are located and also where your client is physically located as well. So we have a quick kind of claims example here for you. So let's say you were hired to provide a specific dietary plan to a client that included certain carbohydrate levels. However, you failed to thoroughly review their medical history and did not account for their pre-existing kidney condition. As a result, the diet plan caused kidney deterioration, which led to hospitalization and medical expenses. So if you were involved in a situation like this, the Dietitians of Canada policy would provide you with coverage for your kind of legal defense costs, again, to be able to hire a lawyer and defend yourself against the allegations, as well as any settlement or damages that could be awarded. Okay, great. So now we'll go through the two other claims categories that we wanted to chat through today. So the second one, so we've gone through the malpractice claims. So again, that would be if a client were to actually hire their own attorney and sue you civilly. And so the second category would be what we would call disciplinary legal expense claims. So this would essentially be for complaints that could be made against you to your provincial college or regulatory body. So things like unprofessional behavior, biased or discriminatory treatment. There could be a wide variety of reasons why an individual can make a complaint against a professional to their regulator. And then the last type of claim is what we would call criminal claims. Very uncommon, but did just want to kind of touch on it really briefly. And that would be where the insured dietitian is actually charged with a criminal offense related to their professional practice. Again, we'll go through a claims example for each of those categories, but wanted to just spend a bit of extra time on those disciplinary legal expense claims. They are the most common type of claim that we see under the program. So again, this would be for college complaints. So as a dietitian, as you all know, you're regulated. So this means you're governed by a regulatory body that oversees your kind of professional behavior. So the college would have guidelines, standards of practice that you as a dietitian would need to abide to. And this is an area where a client or anyone really can turn and make a complaint in relation to your services. So it could be a client that you've treated directly. It could even be a family member or a friend of the client. Could be someone you work with, a colleague. And you may see yourself in a situation where you want and need to defend yourself in an investigation. So when there is a college complaint, there are several potential outcomes. The college could decide to dismiss the complaint based off of the information they have at hand, or they could refer it to an investigation or a disciplinary hearing if they feel that it's warranted. So if you ever receive a letter or a notice from your provincial regulatory body, you have the right and you're encouraged to seek legal counsel for that. And that's where you could turn to a professional liability insurance policy. It's really stressful when you have a claim, and Sarah will go through the steps to take if you ever are in a circumstance like that. we are here to help. We're here to support you through that process, and make sure that you're getting kind of the resources that you need to kind of guide you through that. So yeah, Sarah will spend a bit more time on the steps to take if you are ever in a circumstance where you have a claim or a complaint. So here's an example of a disciplinary claim. So a client's family member complains to the provincial regulator, alleging that the dietitian behaved unprofessionally and that they failed to take an adequate history or explain the meal plan properly. So through the Dietitians of Canada program, you would have access to defense costs up to $25,000 per claim and per year for you to be able to hire a lawyer and assist with your response back to the college. Or if it does go to a disciplinary hearing, you would have access to that legal fund to have a lawyer represent you throughout that process. And then lastly are those criminal claims. Like I mentioned, very, very uncommon. You can see in this example, a client accuses a dietitian of inappropriate touching, and the client goes to the police to have criminal charges brought against the dietitian. So the Dietitian of Canada professional liability policy provides coverage for your legal expenses up to $100,000 per year, as long as you are found kind of not guilty for the allegations. So I'm going to pass it off to my colleague Sarah shortly to go through the other element of coverage that's included under that kind of core combined product. But just wanted to take a few kind of last moments to go through some key kind of considerations and a high level kind of policy details of what's included under the Dietitians of Canada professional liability. We've already gone through those first few bullet points. So again, the limit is 5 million per claim. It's worldwide coverage territory as long as the claim is brought forward and defended in Canada. It includes kind of that disciplinary and criminal defense coverage. And then we just wanted to touch on briefly the retroactive date. So the professional liability policy is written on what we call a claims made form. So what that means essentially is the policy is triggered when a claim is actually made against you, regardless of when the wrongful act or incident that gave rise to the claim took place. So let's say, for example, you receive a notice from your college today indicating that there has been a complaint made against you, but it's stemming from services that you delivered several years ago. You would submit that under the policy you have in place kind of right now. If there was a retroactive date on a policy, it would mean that the wrongful act or incident that gave rise to the claim would need to happen kind of on or after that retroactive date in order for coverage to respond. But you'll note on the slide here that the Dietitians of Canada policy does not have a retroactive date. So that means that it would kind of cover you for services that you've delivered long before the inception date. And then lastly, just wanted to touch on the extended reporting period coverage. This would be particularly relevant for those of you that are intending on discontinuing practice. Perhaps you are thinking of retiring or going on parental leave. And what that means is that you do not necessarily need to continue to purchase an active policy in order to stay protected. Instead, if a new claim were to be made against you and it's within that first 2 years of your last active policy expiring, you would report that under the last active policy you had in place. It's important to note, though, that it would only respond to services that you delivered kind of before the expiry date of your policy. So if you are intending on delivering services in any capacity, maybe you are still going to work very part-time hours or you're still going to do some volunteer work, you would need to continue to purchase an active policy in order to stay protected. Perfect. So I'm going to pass it off to Sarah now just to go through the other element of coverage that's included under that combined package sold to you through the Dietitians of Canada membership, and that's the commercial general liability insurance.
Thank you, Tara. So, as a dietitian, you strive to deliver the best possible service to your clients. But as a professional, you still face risks that go beyond your delivery of your professional services. Having appropriate insurance in place is essential. Commercial general liability insurance, often called slip and fall insurance, protects you against claims arising from an injury or property damage that you or your business may cause to another person as a result of your operation or premises and unrelated to the delivery of your professional services as a dietitian. So as Tara briefly touched on earlier in the presentation, there is commercial general liability automatically included in the core insurance product. So you receive a 3 million per occurrence, 3 million per year policy limit. And we just briefly wanted to go over some of the key elements of coverage. So within the policy, there's products and completed operations, which is intended to provide coverage for claims that may arise from products sold, manufactured, or distributed by the insured, and operations that you have completed. There's also personal injury and advertising liability, which is intended to protect you from claims of non-physical harm caused by your actions, products, or advertising. We also have medical payments, which is intended to pay for the medical expenses incurred by a third party due to an accident occurring on your premises or as a result of your operations. Finally, we have tenants' legal liability coverage, which is the element of coverage that is intended to protect you from financial losses due to your legal responsibility for damage to rented premises. Okay, so on this next slide, we are going to go over a commercial general liability case study together. So a client trips and falls over your equipment bag that you've accidentally left out in the reception area. He falls and sustains a head injury. Subsequently, he sues you for negligence. So in this instance, you can make a claim under your Dietitians of Canada commercial general liability policy for settlement or damages awarded to the limit selected and for legal defense costs. Okay, so on this slide, this briefly touches on what Tara was speaking about earlier. So members who participate in the Dietitians of Canada insurance program. Oh, sorry, Tara, just back one slide if possible.
How's that, Sarah?
Just for the pro bono helpline, you passed it.
Oh, perfect.
Awesome. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So as Tara touched on earlier, members who participate in the Dietitians of Canada insurance program have access to a pro bono legal helpline offered through Gowlings. So if you wanted to access this service, you can call the phone number that we've listed on the slide, and it would specifically be for professional liability related legal questions. So this could be things like privacy and confidentiality, conflict of interest, or ethical and professional obligations. We also wanted to include our phone number up here in case you have any insurance related questions. I know we were only able to briefly touch on the additional products that we offer to Dietitians of Canada members. So if you would like to go over any of those in greater detail, please don't hesitate to reach out and we'd be happy to set up an opportunity for you to speak with one of our brokers. Okay, so to finish off the presentation, we wanted to provide you with some additional information on what to do in the event of a claim. Since anyone can initiate a complaint, it's important to know the steps you should take to prepare a response and defend yourself. The most important thing to remember is that you should never attempt to manage a complaint on your own. Your program partners, such as us here at BMS, are here to help. The first step you'll want to take when you are made aware of a claim or of a potential claim is to report it to the insurance company Victor through the email address that we've provided on the slide. When you're reporting the claim, you'll want to be sure to include your certificate of insurance, the complaint letter, as well as any other relevant documentation that you have received. Once the complaint has been reported, Victor will acknowledge receipt of your claim and will assign an adjuster to your file. The adjuster will be responsible for investigating the claim and determining the appropriate course of action, including things like connecting you to legal counsel where appropriate. As always, if you have any questions about the claims reporting process, please reach out to us because we're here to support in any way that we can. So we did just want to include our contact information up here one more time. So we have our designated phone number and designated email for Dietitians of Canada members up on the screen right now. Thank you everyone for your time today. And we wanted to now open the floor to any questions.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm gonna go in the Q&A function. Perfect. Does the coverage apply to virtual or telehealth services?
Okay, so
You go ahead,
Sarah.
Sarah.
Do you want Sarah? Okay. So the policy applies to in-person and telehealth services delivered worldwide. Similar to what Tara was touching on earlier in the presentation, you'll need to ensure that you are acting within your scope of practice as a dietitian, and that you are abiding by the rules and regulations of your jurisdiction and the jurisdiction where your client is located. For those who are delivering telehealth services, we do also recommend our cybersecurity and privacy liability coverage to address the increased exposure around delivering virtual services. So if this is something that you're doing, please feel free to reach out to us and we can certainly help you with putting a cyber policy in place.
Perfect. Thanks, Sarah. The next question we had is the DC professional liability policy suitable for incorporated businesses? Are there any extra insurance considerations for corporations? That's a great question. So that's something we would suggest contacting us directly. Specifically, it would depend on what your unique circumstance is. Are you incorporated? Is it just yourself? Do you have other professionals delivering services on behalf of your incorporated business? Sarah just briefly touched on kind of the cyber coverage. So certainly give us a call or send us an email and we're happy to kind of go through your specific business structure and corporation structure. If RD gets arrested at a public protest/rally, how would that impact the professional liability insurance? So we touched on coverage included for kind of criminal defense reimbursement. So that is specifically for criminal complaints in relation to your service delivery as a dietitian. So if you are going to the protest or rally as just a member of the public, you're not delivering your services as a dietitian, the professional liability policy would likely not extend for kind of legal defense costs associated with that. I'm hoping I answered your question though. So if we didn't, give us a call and we're happy to help that way as well. Can you give some examples of what the pro bono legal advice line can do for us? I have previously requested review of my privacy policy and they were unable to do that. Sarah, do you want to touch on that one?
Sure, absolutely. So the pro bono legal advice line is specifically for professional liability related questions. So as I mentioned earlier, this could be things like conflict of interest or professional or ethical obligations. It's intended to be used as a helpline, so they wouldn't be able to assist with things like reviewing policies necessarily. Tara, did you want to jump in a little bit more on that?
Yeah, we have a product. It's called the Legal Services Package, and it includes a legal helpline and then also a document review center. So that is something that you can maybe have access to through that service that we offer. If you want to connect with us directly, we're happy to go through exactly kind of what you're looking for in terms of the policy that you're looking to have reviewed and see if we're able to help. Just to be sure, does this include working online through a blog or social media, rather than private practice? Or does this require an add-on policy option? So in terms of the professional liability insurance, like Sarah mentioned, kind of online service delivery is included as long as you're operating within your scope of practice, both where you're located and where your client is located in. If you do have an online business, though, or an online blog, again, that's where those additional business insurance products may be recommended. So it would depend on kind of the services that you're delivering. So yeah, feel free to connect with us and we're happy to go through kind of your specific business structure. Regarding CGL, you mentioned personal/advertising coverage. Can you clarify advertising coverage and what that entails, please? Sarah, do you want to tackle that one?
Sure. So essentially, this element of coverage is intended for if somebody makes a complaint against you due to your advertising. So an example would be if somebody felt that you had potentially slandered their name professionally and made a complaint against you as a result of that, that's when your commercial general liability policy could be triggered.
Perfect. Could you please post your email? I've seen a couple questions about posting our email and our contact details. Sarah, do you mind doing that right now in the chat? That's a
Absolutely.
good point. Regarding pro bono legal helpline, is this available at any time or only with a claim, when a claim is made? So it is specifically for when there's actually not been a claim made against you, but you're just wanting some legal guidance and advice. So maybe you've just seen a client and it left a bit uneasy, or maybe you have some concerns about a potential conflict of interest with that client and you want some legal guidance on kind of steps that you should take to prevent a claim. That's what that pro bono legal hotline is for. Or maybe you have some questions about ethical considerations with seeing a specific client. Again, you can give that legal hotline a call and they can guide you through from a legal perspective. I have liability insurance through my employer and I've purchased additional insurance through Dietitians of Canada. If there is a complaint to my employer about an issue that I am included in, can I ask for my own representation through the Dietitians of Canada coverage? So that's a great question. I guess it would depend specifically on what the complaint is. Like if you're referring to a complaint made to your college, for instance, like if your employer lodges a complaint to your provincial regulator, that's something that you can certainly report under your Dietitians of Canada professional liability policy for kind of legal defense and assistance through that process. So yeah, I guess it would depend on the complaint that you're referring to. BMS is, sorry, the next question, BMS is a broker and Victor is the insurance provider. Is that correct? Really good question. We get this a lot. Yeah, so BMS, we are your insurance broker. And then Victor is who the actual insurance company is with. So you'll see their details on like your certificate of insurance and the policy wording, but that is correct. We are the broker and Victor is the actual insurance company. So in the event of a claim, you would report that claim to Victor, and they would be the ones that are actually paying the costs of that and coordinating you with legal counsel where appropriate. Does the cyber policy cover for telehealth services? Sarah, do you want to tackle that one?
Sure, absolutely. So the cyber policy, as I mentioned, is intended to address the increased exposure involved with delivering telehealth services. So the cyber policy includes coverage for both first-party and third-party cyber loss. So an example of third-party cyber loss would be if you accidentally breached a client's information and they decide to make a claim against you because of that. But there's also coverage for first-party cyber loss. So if your system is hacked, you would have access to a breach response team who would be able to help you with things like forensic IT support, and connect you with a panel of privacy lawyers who would be able to help you determine who you need to contact based off of what information was breached. Typically, when you're delivering telehealth services, you are, maintaining client information, and because of that, there could be a risk that that information could be breached.
Thanks, Sarah. Sorry if I missed this. Is it possible for you to provide us with the slides? Really great question. I believe, Vicki, correct me if I'm wrong, it's been recorded. So both the slides and the presentation itself will be available to you. We're also happy to provide the slide deck as well, if that is preferred. If I file a suit against someone who is defaming / slandering my reputation as an RD, would I be able to file a claim under this coverage? Really good question. So what the professional liability and commercial general liability policies, they are for claims made against you by a third party. So if someone is unhappy with a service that they receive from you, so they sue you, or they have a slip and fall and they look to hold you responsible for that. So it's specifically for injuries to a third party where you are being named. It's not for you to seek legal action against somebody else. Again, we do offer other products and services. We have a business legal and personal legal insurance policy, which does have some elements of coverage for you to be able to pursue another party and fund that. So feel free to give us a call and we can go through kind of exactly the circumstance that you're in and the policies that we offer. I think we've gotten most of them, Vicki. If there's been any specific questions, I would recommend contacting us directly and we're happy to go through kind of your specific question or your specific practice circumstance and answer it that way. Maybe I'll leave a few more minutes in case anyone else has any other questions, but all really good questions. Okay, perfect. I think Sarah put her contact details in the slide, or sorry, our contact details. So if we weren't able to get to one of your questions, feel free to send us an email. I'll put our phone number in as well. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to remember it off the top of my head. Okay, perfect.
Okay, well, unfortunately, everybody, that's all the time we have for questions today. If your question wasn't answered or if you think of something later, as Tara mentioned, please feel free to reach out to either Tara and Sarah directly through the contact information that is included in the chat. As well, this has been recorded, as Tara mentioned, and it will be available to provide to you all as well as our members in just a little bit. We just have to get it posted online. So thank you again, Tara and Sarah, for your valuable insights and information. And thank you all for joining us today. We hope you found this session informative and helpful. And again, if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. So I'm wishing everybody a great day. Thank you again, everyone.
Thanks so
Awesome.
much, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.